the Plant Sumo Podcast. I am your host, Rachael, if you didn't get that the first time because we cut out there for a second. I am here today with the vegan zombie, Chris, who has a huge YouTube channel where basically he runs a vegan cooking show set during the apocalypse, which I personally think is amazing and what a cool creative idea. So welcome, Chris. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me on the show. Thank you. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I know where you are. It's quite late, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 4 a.m. right now.
What are you doing off at that time?
I'm a
Because I know
night
it's
owl.
for...
Yeah, I like to work in night. So I figured instead of waking up early, I would do this because we're like on a 5 hour time difference. So this
Mm.
works better for me.
Yeah, and I know in your messages to me, you actually mentioned at the moment it's Zombie Gate. I don't I don't know what this is. So if you could explain to me, how does that factor into your content?
What did I say? Zombie Gate?
Yeah, Zombie Gate.
That I
Unless I'm
mean, well,
hallucinating things.
that's just the name that I used for my that's like my personal Instagram account. Um,
Oh, I'm so sorry. Literally, where I am, it's 9. I just woke up, so I'm just kind of, yeah. Anyway, so actually, on the subject of your YouTube account, can you talk about the whole concept of combining a vegan cooking show with the apocalypse? Now, I don't think many of people would be like, oh, these two things naturally go together, right?
right,
So,
right.
how did you combine them in your head and create all this content?
Well, I've had the channel for quite a long time. I'm going on almost 12 years now. So at the time, there were no vegan cooking shows on YouTube. If there was any cooking shows at all, they weren't very popular. And YouTube was, basically just posting videos of like funny things, cat things, stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I just remembered like I was working my full-time job and I was driving the back roads of upstate New York and I just I didn't like that. I wanted to do something that I was inspired to do. I would wake up every morning and want to do something. And I just said to myself, what do I love doing? And at the time, I loved making movies. I've always liked making movies, and my forte was the horror genre. And I've been vegan for over half my life, so I wanted to take those three things and see if I could combine them in any way to do something that I really like doing.
Mm.
So I started thinking like vegan vampires because I love vampires, vegan werewolves. I'm like, nah, vegan zombie. And then I'm like, wait a minute. And I had
Mm.
this whole idea for a movie, for a vegan zombie movie, where the zombie infection would be if people ate meat and dairy, and I wrote up a whole movie script for that. And then I wanted to practice to get better to make my movie, so I felt
Mm.
the best way to do that is just to get out there and do it to make videos. So I thought to myself, what if I what if I make like a cooking show? What if I make a vegan cooking show, but it's set in a zombie apocalypse? That's something I want to watch. So
Yeah.
there was nothing on YouTube as far as, veganism goes for cooking shows. So um, I tried it out. I made a video and I posted it and people really liked it. And I said, wow, let's keep doing this. So I had a few videos already to, different veganized recipes that I
Yeah.
would normally do every year with my friends around vegan Thanksgiving, vegan New Year's. We would all get together and we would make a separate dish. And so, we had like 7 or 8 recipes that we wanted to veganize. And then it just kind of took off from there.
Yeah, that's amazing because I think it is such a creative, iconic idea, and it's so cool that you melded your passions in that way. And I think what's incredibly great about you is not only were you one of the first really pioneering YouTubers, right, on the platform who was discussing veganism and cooking vegan and these sorts of issues. Because if you go on now, the platform, like the vegan community on there, is huge. There are a lot of people making videos about this kind of content, but you were introducing it early on and you were introducing it in a way that was really accessible. Like, I really like what you do on your channel where you review a lot of supermarket vegan foods and stuff that they offer. And like you were saying, all the recipes that you show on your cooking show are stuff that you would just regularly do with your families and friends. They don't require, like excessively expensive ingredients. So yeah, like the accessibility of your show, I think, is a really great point of it.
Yeah, and you touched on that. I started the show out as just veganizing different recipes, and the way we did it. Well, back in the day, I was too shy to do these kind of things, so I wasn't the one in front of the camera. I was behind the
Yeah.
camera, and I had my friend John as like the spokesman of the show. So he was the guy that was cooking. I was directing and making the video. But that kind of changed since then. And we would just veganize different recipes that we would hear like a lot of people, because we've been vegan, for a long time now, even
Mm,
before this whole YouTube and internet took off. So we've heard, like excuses for years and years and years. And some of those
yeah.
biggest excuses would be, I'd go vegan except for, I can't do without this or I can't do without that. So we took all those recipes, anything we could think of really, and we would veganize it and we would put it up on the show. But since then, I've expanded the channel to not only be about, just cooking, like a cooking channel in the zombie apocalypse. Like you said,
Yeah.
I go to different grocery stores, I review foods, I do interviews with different vegans. I show people like what different stores have to offer, different restaurants. I travel. I basically try to make it easier for the average person to go vegan and stay vegan, and to just to give as much information as I can to help people out and go vegan.
I mean, just hearing that you've been vegan for such a long time, especially before the advent of like even the internet, I'm just curious, how was that as an experience? Things must have been quite a lot harder in terms of finding options and knowing necessarily how to plan the diet and stuff like that.
Okay, so where it really started was I was 14
Mm,
and I was introduced to vegetarian lifestyle.
yeah.
And I did it like overnight. It's what I wanted to do. And for some people, they think it's something that's hard, or, some people might make fun of them. And this is back in 1990. This is 30 years ago. And
Mm,
for me, it was kind of like a fun new challenge in my life, because now I'm thinking, well, what can I eat? What can I, like I had to start learning to cook for myself because,
yeah.
at 14, I'm not self-sufficient. I don't have a job and I live with my parents, and they didn't really support it at the time, but it didn't like discourage me. I just started learning to cook my own foods. But that, and also before in 1990, it was like very, very primitive internet. There was no such thing as Google. That wasn't until 1998, I believe. So
Oh
it
God.
wasn't very easy to research any of this stuff. And the
Mm,
word vegan was unheard of. So I was a vegetarian. I went vegetarian with two of my friends, but other than that, I didn't know anyone else. And, I made this work. And as time went on, I started learning about veganism.
mm,
And a few years later, I decided to go vegan. And my rationale for that was, before I went vegan, I just didn't want to do anything that hurt an animal or killed an animal. And at that time, there were no documentaries. There was no internet. So I didn't know that eating dairy was killing animals at the time.
yeah.
So when I learned that, I didn't want to be part of that. But I also, in my head, which this works for some people, it worked for me, I just made the connection that, I don't want any part of the suffering of animals. But also, what I did in my head was I said that anything that comes from an animal, I don't consider it food. So like, this is my cell phone, I wouldn't eat this, I can't eat it. That's what
Yeah.
I feel like animal products are. I can't eat it. So if those
Mm,
aren't edible, like what else do I have to choose from? I have, plants and fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and all kinds of things that I can put together. There's literally millions of different combinations you can make to make meals with. And
mm,
that's how I started. And you're right. It never seemed, it was never hard for me. It was like I said, a fun challenge. Like, this is a new part of my life. What am I going to do with it? But I will say that, we didn't have, vegan label on anything. We didn't have any of the products that we have today compared to what we had back then.
yeah.
And so you had to be pretty creative. You had to like find out what was accidentally vegan. You had to call companies and ask them questions. Some people didn't even know what you're asking them. Um, but it was definitely doable. And now it's so much more doable. It's so much easier now than it was then because we do have the internet. We have support groups, we have documentaries, we have vegan labeling. We've got big companies out there that are now making vegan things. It's gone mainstream. People know what it means.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, what you were saying there, right, about, you never saw it as a challenge. You just saw it as a whole new way of enjoying food. Like, that's the ethos of our sort of brand and what we do at Plant Sumo. And do you think that's kind of factored into, because a big part of your channel now, I've noticed, is critiquing, doing reaction videos, responding to a lot of these big figures in the vegan community who have stopped being vegan, or they've said, oh, the diet is too difficult for me, or I can't do it. I'm very curious about the kind of motivation and what kind of impact you want to have through doing that on your channel.
So that's something I never thought that I would be doing on my channel. When I made my channel, I only wanted it to be a positive entertainment. And that's why I picked the vegan zombie. I didn't want to be seen as like shoving, a point of view down some people's throats and stuff like that, even though I do understand that side of it. And part of me like wants to do that, but that doesn't really, it's not practical in real life. People don't like
Yeah.
respond to that very well. So I wanted to make something that was inviting and entertaining to everybody. And once they came in and they felt comfortable, they could start trying the food. And believe me, over the last 12 years, I've got so many emails. I've met people in person. I've had people, like just come up to me at Veg Fest and stuff saying, like I went vegan because of your channel, or, like my family eats like vegan a few times a week because of your channel. They love your cookbook, that kind of thing. So as far as responding to these videos, I felt like a lot of these people came out and they were big influencers, telling people like, oh, I just couldn't do it anymore. And they all like alluded to, the health aspect of it. And
Yeah.
me as a long-term vegan, I've been vegan for over a quarter of a century. It makes me feel old, but like I literally have been vegan longer than I haven't been vegan. And
Yeah.
I just want to be the voice of reason for anybody that might be on the fence, whether they want to go vegan, but then they see somebody like Miley Cyrus saying that, she had brain fog and she couldn't be vegan anymore because of that. Or, any of those big influencers that said that they needed to eat eggs or fish or something. I want to just be the voice of reason to say, look, I'm living proof that, you can be vegan for the long term. I mean, for the first 18 years, I didn't even try. I was a junk food vegan. As long as it was vegan and it tasted good, I would eat it. It wasn't until like the last like 7 or 8 years, pretty much, that I've been looking more into the health aspect of it. And the other thing is when I decided to go vegan, I heard from all of my friends, including my parents, that you better be careful because if you go vegan, you're not going to get a lot of nutrients, and you could get really sick. You could, cause real, serious problems for yourself. So I didn't have anybody to tell me that that wasn't true. And honestly, when I did it, part of me thought that something bad was going to happen to me health wise. And I took a leap of faith. I did it anyway. And to my surprise, I had a noticeable change in energy within 2 weeks of going vegan. And here I am 26 years later, and I'm in the best shape. I feel great. My blood work is great. And I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life. So
That's fantastic. I'm glad you're feeling so great, dude. It
thank
just
you.
it just shows there's so much misinformation when it comes to living a plant-based lifestyle, especially when it comes to health. Because obviously, as we know, the links between just general wellness, not even physiologically, but your brain and your brain functioning, between what you eat is so huge. But there's absolutely like no reason, if you're living a vegan diet, as long as you are educated on what you need and what you need to be eating, that you can't get all the nutrients and minerals that you need. And I think that journey to that point where you were like, I can do this. This is great, like all this stuff that people are telling me, all these sort of anxieties about it, it's untrue. I think that's amazing. And that makes me think as well about your journey to kind of podcasting more, doing things like this, especially since you were saying to me before you started out behind the camera, like this is the first time I've ever done anything like this. And for me as well, it's definitely been a journey of kind of growing in confidence. So what was it that was it just the sheer passion you have for veganism that motivated you to come more out onto the camera? Like, I'd love to hear about that journey.
So I've always been introverted and pretty shy. You would never catch me doing anything like this. And so years ago, like when we first came out with, we have a cookbook. So when we first came out with our cookbook, John and I, we were asked to go to some cooking demos where we went to Toronto, and they paid for us to go up there and do a demonstration for people that were interested in going vegan. And I was terrified to have to speak in front of people. But this was my thing. I created this. I created the Vegan Zombie. John was pretty much he was the chef of the show. He took direction from me. So I couldn't really have him talk about everything that I created. So I had to get up there, and to be honest, I kind of froze when I got up there. It was bad. Like I froze in front of everybody because I couldn't do it. But then as time went on, John didn't want to really be doing what he was doing anymore. He didn't want to be part of it. He distanced himself from the show, and instead of going to get somebody else, I'd have to rely on somebody else. I basically told myself that, like, if he leaves and I have nobody to do this anymore, and I don't just get in front of the camera and do this myself, I'm going to lose everything that I worked hard for. And like, this was like the one thing I found in my life that I didn't feel like I was working. I would get up every day and want to learn more and do more and put out content, and everything I did. I actually turned this into like a job, and I loved it. So I didn't want to lose everything that I worked hard for. So I got in front of the camera one day, and I recorded myself doing a cooking video. And I'm so critical of myself that I spent like 8 hours doing this. It was ridiculous. I kept doing over and over and over, and I hated everything I said. And then when I got done with the video, I edited it. I got ready to upload it, and I was terrified because when I uploaded it, I literally had my mouse pointer button over delete video. As soon as I got like a bad comment, I go, if I get a bad comment, I am deleting this video. And slowly but surely the comments came in, and they were all positive. And today it's one of my most viewed videos. It's how to cook tofu.
Oh my God.
So that was the beginning of it. And then after that, my confidence went up. So like going vegan was like literally the single best decision I ever made in my life, not even knowing it when I did it, but it led me to where I am now. And then creating the Vegan Zombie, it helped my confidence. And now I'm invited to go and do, I had, different veg fest where I do, speaking events in front of like, I think my biggest one was like 150 or 200 people that I'm up on stage speaking in front of. Like, I don't know, 9 years, you would never see me doing that. And I can like walk out there and actually speak in front of people and do a whole demonstration. And I don't feel, bothered at all. I don't feel insecure. And I attribute that all to what I did for people that want to know, that feel the same way, is I told myself, I kind of psyched myself up saying, I have to do this because if I don't do this, nobody else is going to. This is my time to shine, I guess. Like, all I have to do is tell a story, and nobody knows my story better than I do. And I told myself that, I'm here just like you and everybody else that we know. We're all here on Earth right now. This is our time. And in 100 years, we might not be here anymore. And, like, we're forgotten. So make it count. Make it count right now in our time. Who cares if somebody laughs at us or you feel embarrassed? Do it, because this is our time right now. And that's what I told myself. And that's what I always do if I feel a little insecure.
Wow, that's That's so inspiring. And I mean, really for you, just listening to that and hearing that and how it's like completely transformed your life and given a career that you love. Like you saying, it's the most important decision you made. It's really not an exaggeration. And I think for so many people, it's a change that does completely alter all aspects of their life, not just because they feel a lot better and they know they're doing good for the environment and animals as well, but also they have to change aspects of their life, like completely how they cook and how they approach food, which is also a huge part of why your channel is so great, not only because it exhibits you and what an amazing person you are and all your sort of wisdom that you have to share, but also the specifics of food. So on that topic, I'm really curious if you have a favorite meal, because you have like a really diverse amount of food that you actually look at on your channel.
I am known as the pizza guy. Like I love making pizza, all kinds of pizza.
Mm,
Usually when people want to go vegan and they ask me to make them food, I'll make them some sort of pizza. When I was younger, I worked at several different pizza places. I worked in the food industry for a few years when I was in my teens, and I
mm.
basically learned to cook, and I learned to veganize everything while I was cooking, like at different restaurants and stuff. So I just have a knack for it, I guess. It's fun, and I like to make different vegan things that taste great.
Oh,
Pizza.
cool. That's so. Yeah. I mean, everyone loves pizza. I feel like
Yeah.
no matter what diet you follow. But I think as well, obviously you go around, you try a lot of different food at different places and stuff like that. And as you said, you used to be a classic vegan junkie where you would just eat like, French fries, pizza, stuff like that all the time. What do you think of the fact that a lot of big corporations, I think mainly like Burger King recently, I think released a vegan burger, and McDonald's has been moving into it, and KFC, lots of other chains. What do you think of the implications of that, considering also their interference in, meat and stuff?
Yeah, I think that's a sign of the times that it's going mainstream. Of course, I want to see them do this. Um,
Mm,
for me, so this is how I kind of described it. I think that some of these things are not necessarily for vegans, but it's great
mm,
for the vegan movement. So I
yeah.
haven't I haven't gone to Burger King or McDonald's or KFC to try any of these things. I just have like an OCD with like cross contamination and stuff like that. But I think it's a great thing. I think it's a great thing for people that are looking to go vegan. I mean, that could be a spiral effect for somebody that is just going to get a regular burger and sees that and says, all right, let me try this, and said, you know what, vegan food isn't bad after all. And then they try
Yeah.
it, and now they are trying more things. So I think it's great that this is happening. I would much rather see them do this than to continue. I mean, for every burger that people are buying that's vegan, they're not buying an animal burger. And I think that's great. I've made different analogies, especially with like huge companies like Ben and Jerry. Ben and Jerry started out with like 4 vegan ice creams, and now they have, I think, over 20. I was
Oh,
invited to their
wow.
facility. A bunch of vegan
Mm,
influencers where we made our own vegan ice cream, and we got to talk to them and give them suggestions about, um, you know, building their vegan part of their company. And for, like I said, for everyone that's made, that's less of a non-vegan flavor. And something like Ben and Jerry's is known. I don't know about over there, but over here it's a well-known product. So
mm.
if somebody were to try like a vegan ice cream, which I always like to support, like the all vegan companies, the smaller companies and stuff, but you got something like Ben and Jerry's, nobody's going to question that. They are familiar with that. So if you
Mm.
want like your family or something to eat vegan with you, and they send you out to the store and you come home with like some Ben and Jerry's ice cream, you grab the non-dairy, they don't even notice it, and they eat it, and
Mm.
there you go. And then when they're done, say, guess what? You just ate vegan ice cream. So it's doable. So stop, like, because I think a lot of people knock vegan food without ever really trying it or knowing how
Yeah.
delicious it can be.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, trust me, Ben and Jerry's is definitely known over here.
Okay, I didn't, I wasn't
People,
sure.
No, people love it. And I was actually going to say, I think Ben and Jerry's in general is a very ethical company, especially how they treat their employees, how they've treated a lot of the big sort of social movements, which are kind of centered in the US at the moment, like mainly Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. So I think they're great. And that's so cool you were given the opportunity to actually go there and create your own like vegan ice cream and products and stuff like that. But yeah, I totally agree. People have this completely like going straight into eating vegan food, there's already this negative perception of like, oh, it's going to taste, less than meat, it's not going to taste as good. And honestly, that leads me to have a bit of an issue with the way a lot of things, like I'm thinking meat substitutes here, right, primarily are marketed to people as oh, it tastes just as good as meat, and they're marketed as imitation meat products, right, rather as instead I think they should be marketed as their own sort of standalone food, if you get what I mean, because if they're always seeking to imitate meat, they're always going to be in the shadow of it, if you get what I mean. I'm
I
curious
don't like to call any of it. I don't like to call any of it fake, fake food or fake meat or anything like that. I prefer to call it like plant meat, and I'll make an effort to call it plant meat. And I always have a problem like when I think that we're ingrained, we're taught like backwards thinking, and we have to unlearn it because people say like, well, why do vegans want to eat like a burger like that imitates meat? And I'm like, well, okay, think about this. What sounds more reasonable, to go and gather, nuts and grains and seeds and stuff, and vegetables, and grind them up, make a patty with it and cook it, or to bring an animal into the world, raise that animal, slaughter that animal, grind that animal up into a burger, cook that and eat it. You're making an animal look like, a dead carcass, whereas you're making, plants into, a palatable thing to eat. So I think that's ridiculous to say that. I think it's more plausible to say like it's a burger, a plant burger is it's more normal than doing something like that to an animal.
Yeah, and true. And I think a lot of people will refer back to our evolutionary ancestors, right? When they talk about things like, oh, but eating meat is completely natural. But we have always eaten a majority like plant-based diet. Like, yeah, of course our ancestors ate meat and they hunted and stuff like that. But the vast majority of what we ate was plant-based food, which was collected by hunter-gatherers.
Right.
So
And,
I think, yeah.
and we don't live in
Sorry, go
caves
ahead.
anymore, and we don't die at the age of 25.
Yeah, exactly. It's all right for things to change. And I think, people talk about vegans as, oh, they're also privileged, they get to do this, they get to do that, right? But if you are living in a society where you have the technological means to avoid doing things like eating meat, right? And you're starting to develop products which have a similar flavor. So, if that's a priority for you, you're not losing out on it. Then what would make someone want to eat meat over vegan products? Is my sort of question. I think as we move more towards innovating new kinds of, like plant-based meats and stuff like that, you will see a bigger shift in people, because no one enjoys the idea that we're contributing to these huge industries, like the farming industry and, the dairy industry, which do abuse and hurt animals. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough, which do actually hurt and abuse animals. People, just care about the flavor. They care about what they're eating. So yeah, exactly. That's how I think you'll see a shift.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people always equate veganism to health, and that's not. So veganism, just to be clear with other people watching, that the veganism isn't about health, which a lot of vegans generally are healthier by being vegan, but you can absolutely be a junk food vegan. And veganism is simply an ethical standpoint to not exploit, harm, hurt animals in any way, not to wear animals, and not to eat animals and any of the byproducts. So yeah, you can absolutely be unhealthy as a vegan. So I have no problem with different vegan imitation plant meats, plant cheeses, plant milks, whatever they're trying to do out there, as long as it's vegan and it's not hurting animals. I have no problem with any of it. I mean, obviously, if somebody asked me like, what is the most healthiest diet you can have, I'd say, a whole food plant-based diet, that's probably going to
Mm,
be the healthiest diet you can eat. But I find, like when people, a lot of these influencers that aren't vegan anymore, they were on very strict diets and they didn't allow
mm,
themselves any kind of like, I don't know, like leeway. And a lot of them
yeah.
aren't vegan anymore. And I feel like, I mean, I was a strict raw vegan for a little while and I found it very challenging and
Mm,
it made my head think crazy things like cravings and stuff like that. I would never not be vegan, but I found that a good balance, like it, I eat processed foods and junk foods and I balance it out. My
mm.
main diet is eating healthy foods, but I'm not going to beat myself up if I want like some kind of vegan comfort food. I'm going to
Mm.
balance it out and I kind of know my balance, but I guess it's
Yeah.
each person has to find that for themselves.
Mm. That's so true as well. Like any sort of like hyper restrictiveness with any kind of diet, it just makes it completely unsustainable. Because exactly what you were saying about you fall into these sorts of cravings, and that's how things like disordered eating patterns can start to emerge. And I think it's really dangerous with these Instagrammers if you have a platform like this, right? And rather than actually discussing the nature of your specific diet and being honest with people about the ways in which it was hyper restrictive, right? You didn't even allow yourself to have comfort food. You expected perfection. You attached a moral value to food. Instead, you blame veganism as a whole. And I think that's a huge issue because it just adds to this already negative perception of veganism as like this restrictive diet where you're sacrificing things, like you're sacrificing things for moral and ethical reasons rather than what it actually is, which is a whole new way of enjoying food. You're just enjoying plant-based food without the same moral and ethical concerns. So yeah, I completely agree with you there.
And I feel like when people do, like what you're saying, when people
Mm,
do restrictive diets, they can feel like they're missing out on things. But I also want to say that in my entire time of being vegan, I've never
mm,
felt like I was missing out on anything. If I want to make
yeah.
like, if people are eating pizza, I can go and I can make some of the best pizza I've ever had. I can make,
Mm,
vegan mac and cheese, burritos, tacos, like ramen, donuts. I can make it all if I want it, and
yeah.
I've never felt like I'm missing out ever.
Mm. It just shows you just need to know what to do. You just need to have platforms and channels and stuff like that where you can understand you can have exactly the same kind of comfort food as you would as a meat eater, as a vegan. And actually, recently I had some really nice vegan mac and cheese. And I'm someone who like I've always quite enjoyed cheese over the course of my life. So learning how to like move past that and let go of it as like a comfort thing was a big sort of thing for me moving into living a plant-based lifestyle. But actually, they've improved the quality of a lot of plant-based cheeses so much since like the earliest times I remember trying them, which would have been like 2009, 2010. It's crazy just the way things have progressed. So yeah,
Oh
thanks to
yeah,
channels like you. Yeah.
yeah. When I first went vegan, there was like nothing as far
Mm,
as cheese goes. Um, we would make like a garlicky, nutritional yeast kind of cheese, and it
mm.
was nowhere as good as like what we have today. So like that, as far as that goes, if you're a cheese lover, there's a ton of really good vegan cheeses out there.
Yeah. And I think what's really cool as well is you see so many vegans, and I think this has contributed to the rise in veganism as well, looking towards other cultures and other cuisines to draw inspiration for the stuff they like to eat in their food. And I saw on your channel, obviously, recently you and your family tried like vegan baklava, and I love baklava. It's one of my favorite desserts. It's amazing. So I really enjoyed that video. And with what we do here at Plant Sumo, we've also taken a lot of inspiration from a lot of different global cuisines, like a lot of Asian cuisines, Middle Eastern, stuff like that. Because I think so many of them, compared to a lot of Western diets, center meat a lot less, not always, but comparatively a lot of the time, which makes them easier to veganize. I don't know if you found that in your experience or.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, we as humans have been cooking since the beginning of our existence, and
Mm,
people, it's just they draw inspiration from other cultures, other people when they see different foods, and it's always growing. We're always getting inspiration from other
yeah.
cultures to make foods and everything, and sharing different foods. I mean, when I went vegan, it opened up my world to different foods that I had never tried before, just because my mom wasn't really much of a cook when I was little, and it would be
Mm,
like the same thing over and over. Like Wednesday was a certain thing, Monday, Tuesday were all certain things that she would just repeat every week. So when I started cooking on my own, and then learning more about cooking and working in the restaurant industry and just everything vegan, I've learned so much, and I've had so many different foods. It's amazing.
mm. Yeah, it's incredible. And I mean, part of that is just learning how to cook, right? Because a lot
Right.
of people, I remember being a kid and I used to hate vegetables. Like I hated them. I wouldn't eat any of them. And it's solely because my mum just used to steam or boil everything. And I was like, why doesn't this have any flavor? And it's just literally how it's being cooked. So
Same
once you
here.
understand, yeah, it's kind of crazy. You go through your whole life thinking, oh, this has no flavor. I hate this. And it's literally just the way it's been cooked and the way it's been prepared, right? And I think a lot of people, it's not even just that they don't understand, but they also don't necessarily have the time with the crazy sort of work schedules that a lot of people have to live day to day, in this sort of world. They don't have the time to be like thinking, oh, how do I prepare this specific ingredient so it really shines, or how do I prepare my food? So having like these sorts of videos where you show people how to cook, and also services like us where with zero prep, you just order your meals, the box comes and you just heat it up and eat it. It's really great for veganism because it shows it's just as accessible as eating normally, I guess.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, there hasn't been, this is something else that I like to tell people. There hasn't been a single day that's gone by in all these years that I thought to myself, like, wow, like I can't be vegan today. No, it's like I might be thinking, like, what am I going to eat today? But it's never, I mean, it's always vegan, obviously. And I always find something, whether it's one of those things where I'm planning a meal out, or I just go to the kitchen and I said, I guess I'll throw some of this in there. Oh, and I'll throw some of this in there. And I just throw everything together and I make a meal that I've never made before. And I do that most of the time.
Mm.
But
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, it's just through this whole experience and through your sort of relationship and journey with veganism, it's second nature to you. Like, you don't have to go into the kitchen with this sort of plan of what you're going to do. You just sort of throw things in. But what I love about your channel is for people who are completely new to a vegan diet and they have all these, conceptions in their head. Oh, it's really difficult. I can't do this. It's going to take so much of my time finding everything. You make it so much easier for them, and I think that's really fantastic and amazing, and it's great. Your channel has been going for so long, since the early internet, really.
thank you. Thank you. Well, that was the whole point. We wanted to make it easy and accessible, and show people that, you can be vegan. And if think you're going to miss out on a certain food, like we try to, we veganize it.
Mm.
And we have hundreds of videos on cooking on our channel. Like I said, like you said, like all those years that, like we put out a video like every week for like
Mm.
12 years, almost 12
I've
years.
got yeah, I've just I've just noticed your cat crawling
Oh no, that's
about.
my dog.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, I got a
Oh
couple
god.
German Shepherds. They probably walk through here. Yeah, I
Oh,
got the
that's
lights on
cute.
too, so they're casting shadows on the wall. And
Yeah, for a second when I saw that, I was like, is that a werewolf? Is he that devoted to this whole
yeah, yeah, the whole
no.
horror genre. Yeah, there's one right
Yeah.
there.
Oh my
They
god.
heard me
Oh,
talking
so
about.
sweet.
Yeah, actually he's in a lot of the videos too. He's in the cookbook. I got some doggy treats in the cookbook.
Oh, cool. Yeah, isn't there one video where like you do a sort of taste test with them of like different foods and stuff?
Yeah, I wanted to see like what foods will my dogs eat, and yeah,
Mm.
yeah, that
Oh,
was
yeah.
earlier this year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Well, to everyone watching, I would recommend for you to check that out and to check out the rest of Chris's channel, The Vegan Zombie. Thank you so much for coming on. I've really, really enjoyed this. You're like so inspiring to listen to, and you have a lot of wisdom about this. So this was amazing. Thank you so much.
thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And thank you everyone for watching. I hope you tune in next week for another episode. I'm Rachel. This is Chris, the vegan zombie. Go look at his Instagram. Go look at his YouTube. Go look at everything. You will love it. Thank you so much again, Chris. And bye, everyone.
Bye.